we are continuously adding to the lineup for today. Amazing speakers. I'm joined here today by my co-host Megan Cornell from Momentum Law. And with us now we have Chris Hively from Techstars. Chris, thank you for coming all the way down to the amazing, vibrant, and I'm sure just overwhelmingly polite Ottawa. Thank you for
emphasis on polite.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us today. But we're here to talk business, and that's what we are here today to really showcase. And we're so glad to have someone like yourself that once again gets into these deep conversations with companies. Now, starting MapQuest almost 25 years ago, starting a company that, 25 years ago and starting a company now. I'd love to know what you are looking for, maybe even what has changed? What has changed in that whole process in starting a company?
Everything.
Done, the question answered. Okay, moving on, yes.
It's really funny because I'll have, first time or, new entrepreneurs, founders come to me and say, you did an amazing thing with MapQuest. I'd love to pick your brain on, lessons learned or, tips and tricks. And I say, there's you can't. No. It's like asking your father, it's like your father's Oldsmobile kind of thing. It's completely different. I mean, I'll give you one example. There were no such thing as data centers back then. Mm-hmm. We were buying servers and they sat in the last cubicle in the back of a cubicle farm and, all daisy chained to the same electrical outlet. That's everything is completely different.
Right.
So no comparison. But I actually think it's both easier and harder today to start a company. Easier because you can get the product quicker. Mm-hmm. Harder because you're lots of competition for people trying to find and get access into each one of our brains.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So I know our clients who are looking for money want to hear from you. What do you look for? What really sets you alight when you first meet a company? And is there anything that makes you kind of hesitate when you're looking at a new investment?
Well, I believe as a good investor, you start with no, and people have to convince you to go to yes. And I think a lot of people raising money forget that. They think they have yes, and as long as they don't screw up, right, that they'll be in. And I think the water flows the other direction. So recognizing that, I believe, is really crucial. The other thing is that, it's maybe intellectual. We may be looking for certain things, but I think a lot of investors, especially good investors, want to find a connection with the person that they're going to invest in. This is a journey that we're going to go on. And I have to want to work with you. And so for different investors, it may be different things. For me, I want to see that the person thinks like I think. Not that we're clones of each other, but that we kind of tackle problems in a similar fashion. Because I want to make sure that my brain is going to fit with what you need. And if you don't think like I do, then that we're going to run into trouble, right? And then the value that I'm supposedly going to deliver more than capital becomes meaningless. And so I'm really trying to find out what your personality's like, how do you think, how do you like to tackle problems? And for me personally, I like people who love to get lots of data and like to get lots of input and ask people questions and ask, how do you think about this? And how do you think about this? And then take all that and make really good decisions. So I'm looking for that process, that kind of mind.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and so to follow on that, though, it's not necessarily that if it's not a fit with you and that company is going to be unsuccessful. So they shouldn't take a rejection from one investor as, I've got it all wrong. Because your point is, it's about you and the company fitting, and there could be a better fit for them out there.
Well said. And by the way, if one no or one kind of set of questions gets you off you're probably not a fit to be a long-term entrepreneur, right? I was just talking to a friend of mine. I live in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, who got 142 no's. Now, from that, he's learned that his company is actually before its time, and that in his market it hasn't matured to a point where he should be able to raise money. But 142 times he's approached investors. It is a journey, and one of the first pieces of advice I give an entrepreneur is, well, come back to me when you've talked to 8 or 10 investors. Because with 8 or 10, you'll start to maybe see some trends. You'll start to see some similar questions or some furrowed brows that they don't understand one aspect. Either means that you have to explain it better or that something's wrong that maybe you need to fix. But certainly not one investor. But get used to the no's.
Absolutely. And I'd love to know what you think, because it sounds to me sometimes, many times, when companies go out there, they're cautious in approaching. They have a good product, but they're cautious in saying, listen, I need to get some sales under my belt, absolutely, to try and validate my product. But I don't want to talk to an investor and blow that opportunity, not being in the right space just yet to showcase them. But isn't it true so many times that when you need to have those conversations, as you just said, to realize, where am I in my developing process? Am I almost there, or is there still work to be done? Because a no now doesn't mean a no in 6 months or a year from now.
Yeah, well said. And I encourage founders to get out early with investors, even if those investors, even if they know or they feel that investor invests a little bit later down the road. Start building a relationship. I liken finding your investor as like finding your spouse or your mate, right? Very few of us, raise your hand, if you met and consummated your relationship, including marriage, all in the same day,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
So, you're not going to walk in and close them that day.
Yeah.
Build a relationship.
Yeah.
What you'll find is that someone will say, you know what? The questions they'll ask will say, they like to see you when you have 10 customers, not at 0.
Yes.
So, you put them in the back of your mind, put them on your B list, and say, I'm going to keep them up to date. And at some point, when I get my 6th or 7th, maybe they'll awaken and maybe they'll be ready. So, a good founder is spending a good portion of their time always managing their relationships, building them so that they're ready, hopefully, to make a connection when it's the right time.
Now, we have a little bit of time with you, so I'm going to ask you one more quick question. And the question is, what do you think is the biggest mistake that companies make when they get funding? Because I think sometimes companies are really like, I just want to get money, and now I get my money, and now what?
Get a beer can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What do we do now? What do you feel is that, what is the biggest mistake that they make?
It's going out and hiring lots of people.
Okay.
Right? When they're not really ready for it. And I've seen it so many times that I don't want to see it again. And it's a natural thing. And by the way, investors don't help this. Investors like, I just gave you all the money, now grow. And grow usually means either hiring people or spending a bunch of money on Facebook ads, right? And you got to know that money's never coming back. And I need to know I want to know how that person's actually going to move the needle tomorrow. And if you can't answer that question for me, then I'm going to tell you it's too soon to hire the people. So just because you have the money doesn't mean you should spend it.
Okay, love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's such a pleasure in having you, Chris, from Techstars, that's joined us here. And once again, the hub of tech that's happening here in Canada. We're so happy to have you here at AccelerateOTT. Thank you very much to Megan Cornell, my co-host from Momentum Law. And we look forward in seeing you hopefully here in Ottawa more frequently as well.
Ottawa.
Go Ottawa.